Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Beyond the Margins. My name is Ian O'Neill. I'm the Eastern U.S. Sales Manager with Roland DG Shape, and today we're visiting Chris Schermerhorn here at Northern Virginia Dental Lab. And Chris, thanks for having us.
Sure.
And, appreciate your time.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys came. You know, we started earlier, we had dinner last night, and we were talking about the fact that both of us are second generation. Our fathers are lab technicians. The interesting thing we were talking about is cleaning the labs.
Yep.
Right, and you had a good joke. What was that joke you were saying?
My dad always used to joke that I was the youngest porcelain technician that he knew, right? And the funny thing is, when he would say, "Oh, he's the youngest porcelain technician," to people in the industry, they would automatically think I was on the bench, stacking porcelain.
Yeah,
but
14
really,
years old or something.
Really, I think it was even like 8, 9 years old. He was bringing me and my sisters down to the lab on a Saturday and spending a few hours there. And what he didn't tell people is I wasn't working on porcelain the way we think of it. It was the porcelain toilet, cleaning the toilet.
Cleaning the porcelain toilet.
That was a going joke for a while, so that was funny and still something that I like to bring up today. But yeah, there's so many similarities between people who come up in second generation, just how we went through the process and all of that. So it's interesting to see, whether it's hobbies that you have, whether it's fishing, it's the same things that we did. It was get in the lab early.
Yep.
Try to be out on the water by 3, 4 a.m. in the lab, pumping out the work, getting everything done. So
yeah, my dad grew up in Pennsylvania on top of a mountain. And when he graduated high school, there was really no jobs. So he came from Pennsylvania down to Washington, D.C. And if I remember the story exactly right, he worked for the unemployment agency. And a guy came in, and my dad or the guy had gotten set up with a job interview at Rothstein Dental Lab, which is one of the largest labs in the United States at that time. It was 300 technicians in Washington, D.C. And the guy didn't have a way of getting there, didn't have transportation. So my dad was like, "I'll give you a ride over. I'm getting off work. I'll give you a ride over." So my dad drove him over. They were waiting in like a waiting room area, and they're like, "Hey, while you're waiting, you want to take a tour?" So my dad went on the tour. He was like, "This looks kind of cool." And he's like, "How many applications you guys taking?" And so my dad applied for that job while he was there, got it. My dad, pretty good hand-eye coordination, got moved up through the ranks quickly. Yep. And then within a year or two, he left and opened his own lab, Yeah. And it was just him. And he worked just him in a lab for 2 or 3 years, I'm thinking maybe 4 years. And then a local lab that was larger came up for sale. And my dad put all his money together, got a loan, and bought that. And then that same year, so that would have been 69, 70, when my sister. So the same year my dad bought that, my mom got pregnant with my sister. My dad got a draft notice, and gold prices were through the roof. And you didn't do anything but gold for metals. And the war ended. It wound up not happening to go. My mom had my sister, and he said they had $1,400 in savings, and that's exactly what it cost to leave the hospital to pay the bill. And then gold prices after the war ended kind of settled, and he was like, it was like that close to business ending, this whole thing not being a thing. But he made it through, and so you hear stories like that, and you get a real appreciation for this business that was created. And then I have my boys working out here, so it's third generation. And if you ask anybody in business, that's the riskiest, that third generation. A lot of businesses fail. So I'm very conscious of that. Actually have been working with a consultant to kind of help with organizing my business as more of a business. Not just being a good technician and doing good work, but actually running a business, and also preparing that business for them as it moves into the future, which I think is important. So you kind of went a different direction. You kind of went into the same industry, but
I did, yeah. It was interesting. You talk about how your dad got into it. My dad, if I remember correctly, he started out he was out in New Mexico, and he somehow got a job working for a jeweler. And I guess he showed so much talent or ability with waxing, casting things, that the guy who owned the jewelry shop also was in dental. And we know that at that time, the technologies really were very, very similar.
Yeah.
So that jewelry shop led him to this guy saying, hey, come over and check out what we're doing over here. He worked there, learned a bit, and then left New Mexico back to Connecticut, where he was originally from, and worked for a local laboratory for some time. And just like you said, within a couple of years, left, started his own business with some partners, and had a really successful dental lab out of New Haven, Connecticut for some time, where, like I said, as kids, we'd go in there on the weekends. In summer in high school, I was in there pouring models, learning how to work in the model room. And the day after I graduated high school, I started full-time in the lab. So I went from a high school kid to 50, 60 hours a week, in the model room. I think I spent, it was probably about 2 years in the model room, just learning how to pour the right way, learning how to handle implant cases as they come in. And what my dad did is he probably did it the right way. It was pretty miserable doing it at that age, but the traditional workflow, model room, I think from model room, I started doing all the opaquing for the PFMs so I started doing like both after like 2 years, doing all the opaquing early in the morning. I remember when I started opaquing, it was, the ceramist would come back with just freaking almost everything that I did, saying gray showing through. It's it's not the right shade, so a huge learning curve there. But
I remember I would leave school, so I would get out of school, my 11th and 12th grade year, and I would hop on my truck and go straight into the lab. So I get there around 3 o'clock, I think 3:15. And they would have just articulators lined up and flasks with cases to be invested. And it was cool because I had this huge bowl, and I got so good at timing slurry. I'd get the first batch down, and they would have very little slurry, and then I'd mix the second batch with slurry and put the tops on, and they would all set up about the time. And like you say, I mean, I didn't have fingerprints during that time from sanding the plaster and everything.
Sanding the plaster down.
And then I graduated and went, took those couple classes, 2 semesters at the local community college, and then I worked at the lab full time, except for Wednesdays, because I took my class. I took one in the morning and then one in the afternoon, and got both classes. I just took 2 because I had a learning disability. I didn't think I could do college. I wanted to graduate in summa cum laude because it was interesting, not to shift a little bit, but I had an instructor. The first class I took was psychology, and it was a night course. And the instructor worked at the local prison as a psychologist there, and he did this part-time or whatever you want to call it. And he came in and goes, hey, first thing he comes in, he goes, for any of you guys, this is your first college course. He's like, I don't care if you do the work. I don't care how good your grades are. You're paying me. And I went, oh, I got a little challenge, but I was like, oh, he's like, what am I doing here if I don't try on this? And that just changed everything. Like, I knew I had a learning disability, but I also knew I was 6'4". And if I played basketball against you, I had a natural advantage because I'm just taller. All right. I was a little, I don't know what you would say, dumber. I was not as good at school, so I knew I had to just try a little harder. And so in high school, I think I was coddled to, and I took advantage of that. When I got to college, it was like, okay, it's on. And I did. I took every advantage. I probably worked 3 times as hard as everyone else, but that's just what I had to do. But and so I would come in and working in the plaster departments. All my boys dealt with that. Chase,
it's a rite of passage.
My youngest, he still works in the plaster, but his also is modeling. He's doing a lot of digital modeling and printing of those models, which is kind of, I guess, nowadays version of plaster.
It is a division of the model room, if you think about it.
And it's interesting seeing them kind of grow. But the way my dad started things, it was very hard, much harder. It was a little easier for me, and it's a little easier for them in different ways. But it's nice because I took a lot of work ethic from my father, knowledge.
Yeah.
I took a lot of, but he didn't really have much business. It came from, like I said, literally, was up a dirt road up a mountain. He was the last house at the very top of a mountain. They had chickens. They had a garden. My grandfather drove a coal truck.
Yep.
And, my grandmother worked at Glosser's, which was I probably would be kind of like a Walmart or something now. And, so he didn't come from much. And so he just worked hard. And I kind of learned that you don't not work hard, but you got to work a little smarter, and you got to have a little more risk. He also came from where money was so he's very careful with money constantly. And I think that kind of held him back. I think I have a good mixture from him of taking a little risk, but also being cautious and smart with money. So you take your lessons from your parents.
I think. Look, at the time it seemed pretty miserable. Growing up in the lab and being put through the ringer by my dad and the departments, and going from there. And then I think the first place after model room and opaquing threw me right into metal finishing. And how big are metal finishing departments nowadays compared to what they were 12, 15 years ago?
I don't even have a casting machine. One of my mills is sitting on my casting machine cabinet because it was such a nice solid cabinet.
Thinking back, he did it the right way, really, because he threw me into metal finishing where I destroyed my fingers. Mm-hmm. Learning how to control a high speed when you have no experience with it before, and now getting a 4-unit bridge, and I'm pretty sure he was telling the waxers to overwax everything. For a period of time, because what it did is it taught me a lesson as to why waxing is so important. Mm-hmm. So he threw me there, then brought me to waxing.
Yeah.
And that's why I knew the value of waxing things accurately.
Here's a good version of that, but in the modern day. So when we first got the milling machine, we would mill a crown, and it would go to my father, and he would finish them. Right? And there's not much finishing with them, but there is the contacts and the occlusion and the visual on the screen. Sometimes you can make something bulky and you don't have your finger next to it and you're holding it. Like, you don't have that reference. And so I learned that, and he was like, we went along a little while, and he was like, why don't you finish like every batch you do, finish one of them.
Right.
And I was like, it only takes a second. I'm not going to do that or whatever. And then finally I was like, no, I'm the boss. You're going to do that. At the time, and so I started doing that, and man, how much better my designing became.
Sure, it helps.
Because I was just like, I can see, like, I'm constantly, the path of insertion isn't there. I'm constantly having to grind this or that. And I started doing it. And he even told me, he's like, they're just dropping on.
It makes a difference. I've seen it, even my family, they own a lab now in South Carolina. My brother, my sister, and my dad have a spot down there. And same thing, did that same procedure. Hey, finish what you're designing, and it makes a big difference.
I recently taught Chase, my youngest son, and he's still kind of being taught to do night guards. Mm-hmm. And because they're fairly simple to go together. The only challenging part is exposing the undercut, right? Because it's a teeny bit of a guessing game. There's presets and softwares, but you really got to kind of expose it yourself and kind of deal with it. And that's the same thing. I told him, and I'm not having him finish on those yet, but I'm having him go sit with Dallas when Dallas goes to fit him on the model. And see where he grinds and to drop it down. Same kind of thing, so that it'll help him to design much better as far as that.
That's a good topic you brought up. It's something that I've come across, in my family's experience and with other labs. Somebody who wants to go into providing a night guard, because that's a great additional service to provide somebody you're doing a crown for.
Yep.
It seems like, based on what I've heard and being out of the lab now, it's not my personal experience, but it seems like getting started with night guards, especially when you're printing them, is really challenging. Like when you send that first night guard to the doctor and it goes to the patient, and then usually it comes back, or they do a couple and then they stop sending them. What are a couple of things that you think make a difference when you're starting to do a digital night guard?
100%. And my buddy who I go fishing with, I've worked this out with him on the night guards.
You got to find that right person to do it with. It almost seems like the first time who's going to give you the right feedback. Yeah.
Because a lot of them will just grind on them. Here's the thing. Night guard surrounds almost all the teeth in most designs of night guards, if not all the teeth, right? You're making so many areas of contact, right? So if you're going to be either milling, well, let's say printing a night guard, when you do a partial, how many clasps do you need on a partial to have a nice, secure partial? How many clasps will you have? 3 or 4?
Yeah.
Right? You really only need retention on 3 or 4, maybe 5 teeth of a night guard. Let the rest of them be passive. Because what patients say is they put the night guard, my teeth ache. I wake up in the morning and my teeth
everything,
ache.
yeah.
Because it's at least putting pressure on everything. So just leave everything passive, pick 4 or 5 nice teeth and have the retention on those. Right? And then let the rest of it be passive and let it hold in there. And then when it comes to milling, both hyperdent as well as mill box, you can, what we've found is we will highlight the whole inside of the tooth socket where the teeth are going to go to have more precise milling. It's like marking a margin and telling it's the inside of the crown. We kind of trick it in the software. It looks like you're marking a margin. What you do is just mark that perimeter of those teeth. And we saw a huge, because again, any little area is going to be pressure, and you can push it on a model and go, yep, that's great.
Yep.
When it goes in the mouth, they're like, ow, this tooth, ow, that tooth. And you don't really, the model's not going to talk to you. It's the doctor. And if they don't tell you, you don't know. And with this doctor, I did. And when we started doing that, now it spends an extra half an hour in the mill. It's going to eat up a little more time. But I just had a doctor who's a Coyce doctor, right? So Dr. Coyce is, I think it's like 50 or 60 grand to become a certified, I don't know what they call it, certified, but Coyce student of the Seattle Study Club. You probably heard of that. That's with Dr. Coyce. Yep. And we're doing his night guards, which just has like a deprogrammer to it and some things. And he called me the other day, and we've been working 2 or 3 weeks, probably 2 months with him. So we probably have about 6 night guards, and he wanted me to make some changes to the design. He just wanted no real contact on the lingual and the tissue, a couple little things like that. But the one thing is like, man, your night guards, like, I put them in and the patients just have no complaints of soreness and tightness. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, well, that's a nice clarification of what the other doctor is saying, and then hopefully what all my other doctors are also getting experience of. So that's the biggie, is you don't have to have the thing tight everywhere. Snapping on the model, that's not a good thing. Right. It should kind of...
We don't want to be extracting teeth and take the night guard out in the morning.
Exactly. Sounds good to us because it's very mechanical sounding and it feels... Yep. But yeah, when it goes down, it should kind of go down very passive, and then that last little bit kind of go into place, and then you should have to catch it, kind of work it off, and that's probably really pretty good.
But the key would probably be finding that right partner and having them understand that, hey, this is a new process. I need feedback to
make night guards for all your technicians.
Right. That's a good.
That's a really good. It's some material and stuff, and just get feedback from them. Kind of using that base information I just talked about. But really, if you follow that rule and you have just a few teeth that are making intimate contact, and in your software there's a default, which is an offset, which gives block out to everything. I put that at 16% in Exocad, which is a pretty good buffer all the way around. And then on the individual teeth, I expose the undercut where I want it. Like I said, 3, 4, maybe 6, depending. Some cases don't have a lot of retention naturally there, and you might want to expose more teeth. But yeah, I think that's it's kind of a good one to end this on as a little tip.
I got one closing question for you.
All right.
Labs across the country right now, we have technicians on benches with headphones or earbuds in. What is Chris Schermerhorn listening to in his earbuds when he's working around the lab?
So I don't have
earbuds. That's a good answer. I was actually thinking that might be the answer.
That being said, if I come in early, when I know the phones aren't going to be ringing and stuff, I like podcasts.
Yep.
I like to hear some podcasts. I don't really play music. I mean, I play music in my car. If you looked at my mix of music, it's everything from the Bee Gees to some heavy metal to Neil Diamond. I like a lot of mix, but if you're talking about kind of come in on Friday, we don't work Fridays as a lab. If I come in on a Friday or Saturday, it's a podcast that I'll be listening to. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for spending some time with us today, Chris.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yep.